The 2016 Democratic primary is basically over. Hillary Clinton is the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee. She's the first major party female presidential candidate in history. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, he's been the most progressive Democratic candidate we've seen in recent time. He started his run for the White House with pretty low name recognition. He was polling very close to zero. And after trailing Hillary Clinton considerably, he steadily advanced in the polls, consistently posed a threat to Hillary Clinton's nomination, which was originally thought to basically be inevitable, and ultimately won over 1,800 pledged delegates in a variety of primaries. But nonetheless, Hillary Clinton will become the Democratic Party's nominee at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia. She will face the Republican candidate, more than likely Donald Trump. I voted for Bernie Sanders here in Massachusetts in the primary election. Many supporting him are now left to decide how will they vote in the general election, given that Bernie Sanders is not going to be the Democratic ticket's nominee. Throughout the primary, especially towards the end of Bernie's mathematical path to the nomination, we've seen a push from some of Bernie's supporters for progressives to vote for neither Hillary Clinton nor Donald Trump in November. About a quarter of Sanders supporters say that they won't back Hillary Clinton come election day. Many people in this group, as part of what's been referred to as the Bernie or bust movement, are preparing to still vote for Bernie Sanders in the general election, either as a write-in or in the unlikely event that he'll run as a independent candidate. And there are some tenacious Bernie supporters vowing to stay home altogether on election day. A few others saying they might vote for Green Party candidate Jill Stein or even Libertarian nominee Gary Johnson. I totally understand this reluctance to vote for either major party candidate, given that Bernie Sanders is not going to be the Democratic nominee. Both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump have historically high unlikability numbers. And as progressives, we really have no ideal option among the major party candidates. Donald Trump has been a national embarrassment, combining a total lack of experience or even pertinent knowledge with extreme and frightening positions on any number of important issues, mixed in with a totally buffoonish personality that has no precedent in American presidential politics. And meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is seen by many as not only too conservative to appeal to progressives, but also as a panderer and political opportunist acting according to the latest poll or focus group.
What's something that you always carry with you?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
As imperfect as Hillary Clinton is, and I've been a critic, and as much as I would have rather seen Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee, as progressives, there's no question that our top priority now, our number one concern until November, should be preventing Donald Trump from becoming the most powerful person in the world. A Trump presidency would be a disaster for the people of the United States and for our relations with the rest of the world. Let's walk through it and recap some of Donald Trump's positions. Trump has vowed to undo almost all of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, massively deregulating Wall Street.
You do business with the biggest of big banks. A lot of people on the left want to just break them up. What say you?
Well, I disagree, but I also think we have to get rid of Dodd-Frank.
Donald Trump wants a $12 trillion federal tax cut, wherein the biggest cuts go to the wealthiest Americans and the bottom 20% would save an average of $250. 37% of the cuts would go to the top 1%. This would significantly increase the budget deficit or require unprecedented spending cuts or require impossible growth to pay for itself, as Donald Trump sometimes suggests.
Conservative tax group did the numbers, looked at even the economic benefits from growth and said it would cost $10 trillion. How are you going to pay for all that?
Because we're going to expand the economy incredibly.
Trump has gone back and forth between either supporting no increase to the federal minimum wage or favoring abolishing it altogether.
But I think having a low minimum wage is not a bad thing for this country.
Trump is 100% for right to work and has actually praised Scott Walker, one of the most damaging and destructive governors in the United States, for his anti-union actions in Wisconsin.
Do you agree with how Governor Walker has handled the situation?
I respect his toughness. We need tough people now in government.
Trump has called climate change a hoax made up by the Chinese and wants tremendous cutting of environmental regulation.
Well, first of all, I'm not a believer in global warming. I'm not a believer in man-made global warming. It could be warming and it's going to start to cool at some point.
And Donald Trump wants to expand defamation and libel laws so that journalists are easier to prosecute.
We're going to open up the libel laws so when they write falsely, we can sue the media and we can get the story corrected and get damages. Right? Believe me.
Trump also wants to renew parts of the Patriot Act that have expired and further expand surveillance of Americans via internet and telephone. Trump says that the most mistreated people in this country are police, and he is also against marijuana legalization, saying, "I think it's bad and I feel strongly about it." Donald Trump is a strong proponent of the death penalty. He said that he would create executive orders that would, in certain situations, mandate the death penalty, even in states that have already abolished it, which has perplexed legal experts. And Trump has recommended ending restrictions on assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, and military-style weapons, as well as making concealed carry permits valid nationwide, including in schools. Trump wants to limit legal immigration, and of course he wants to deport all 11 to 12 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. and build an approximately $10 billion wall along the entire U.S.-Mexico border, both of which would be fiscal and logistical nightmares. Trump wants to put all American Muslims into a national database, as well as halt all Muslim immigration, which also confuses legal experts.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
And Donald Trump wants to resume waterboarding and implement even more severe forms of torture.
And I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding.
He has also said that he wants to kill the families of terrorists. And Donald Trump wants to expand the U.S.'s nuclear arsenal.
First of all, you don't want to say take everything off the table
No,
because
just
you're
nuclear.
a bad negotiator if you do
Just
that.
nuclear.
But would there be a time when it could be used? Possibly.
Okay, the trouble is when you said that,
Possibly.
And then there's the Supreme Court. The next president could nominate 3 or even 4 Supreme Court justices during their presidency. Trump has been floating far right-wing possibilities, such as Raymond Grender, Dianne Sykes, and William Pryor, who were notorious for their anti-abortion judgments, or even Stephen Colleton, who has nationally helped block women's access to birth control. Donald Trump must not become president of the United States.
When the day comes in November and Sanders has to cast his vote, to whom does it go?
In all likelihood, it'll go to Hillary Clinton.
When you say, in all likelihood, I would vote for Hillary Clinton,
Well,
who else would you vote for?
Well, certainly, look, let me also be very clear, and thank you for asking that. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that Donald Trump is defeated.
If you're a Bernie supporter living in a state that could be in play in November, I don't see much rationale for voting for anyone but Hillary Clinton. This always entails states like Ohio and Florida, Wisconsin, Iowa, Colorado, Nevada, and New Hampshire. But this year, there are even more states than usual that could be deciding factors in the election. Virginia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Oregon, New Jersey, Michigan, all could be important battlegrounds this time around. If you live in a solidly blue or red state, I can completely empathize with your desire to vote for Bernie Sanders as a write-in or for another third-party candidate, right? Places like California, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Texas, Mississippi, or Alabama, I can't harshly criticize that. Refusing to vote for Hillary in that situation is not unjustifiable. Anyone in a safely blue or red state voting for Bernie Sanders or Jill Stein is not condemnable. However, from a different perspective, do you really think that voting Bernie in any situation would make any impression on Hillary Clinton or her potential administration? Or maybe you're in the camp that says if Trump is elected, he would only continue to further destroy the Republican Party and their image in the long run. While this is probably true, we again have to ask ourselves, at what cost? A Trump presidency should not be an acceptable endgame for the Bernie or bust movement. And don't forget, lack of popular vote support for Hillary Clinton will undoubtedly be used as leverage by Republicans to justify obstructing anything progressive that she might try to accomplish in Washington under the accusation that, hey, she has no mandate. Is that really something that we want to allow? Now, if those who supported Sanders in the primary truly want to cause positive change, risking or even ultimately allowing a Trump presidency would be a huge step in the wrong direction. This should be obvious. Hillary Clinton is not Bernie Sanders. Many of her appointments, her executive actions, her decisions will not be as progressive as those of Bernie Sanders would have been. But without a doubt, in virtually every way, she is better than Donald Trump. She is smarter. She is more experienced. She is more knowledgeable about relevant issues. And she is more progressive than Donald Trump. I completely understand how, as a strong Bernie Sanders supporter, voting now for the lesser of two seeming evils can feel sort of disingenuous. It can feel sort of like you're abandoning what Bernie Sanders supporters believe in, what they fought for after having a candidate seemingly so closely aligned with their progressive values. But Bernie Sanders' shot at the presidency was not the be-all and end-all for new progressive change in the United States. Hopefully it's just the beginning. Just look at Bernie Sanders' level of support now versus what it was when he first announced his candidacy. Sanders' campaign and the support that it has rallied has already done good. It's woken people up on many issues. It's demonstrated that there is strong support among Americans for progressive causes. Thanks to the Bernie Sanders campaign, there is now new consciousness about meta problems that plague our country, such as wealth inequality, Wall Street recklessness, and the campaign finance system. The revolution that Sanders talks about doesn't have to stop here.
Election days come and go, but political and social revolutions that attempt to transform our society never end. They continue every day, every week, and every month in the fight to create a nation and world of social and economic justice.
If Bernie Sanders had never even been a part of this election, would you be giving up on your causes? Would you now be making a conscious choice that would help Donald Trump become the next president of the United States? Probably not. The most dangerous thing for the progressive movement, for the country, and for that matter, for the world, would be a Trump presidency. If you live somewhere where your vote will not affect the outcome of the general election, I can absolutely see the appeal of voting for Bernie Sanders or a third party. But if you're a progressive living in a state that could shape this election, I hope you'll keep in mind that Donald Trump must not be president of the United States.